Okay, we're live.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the beautiful downtown Mahone Bay, right on the corner of Main Street and something or other. Meeting of Mahone Bay Town Council. This is the last meeting for the month of May, and we have almost all of council here. We have one person who's been temporarily delayed. And we have a staff member with us or two, and we've got a visitor in the gallery. And no doubt we'll have throngs of people at home before we're finished.
Can you make sure your speakers mics are muted?
A mic or speak?
Your mic or speak.
Sorry.
Is it now?
Yes.
Okay. Very good. Well, you have an agenda that was emailed out to you. We will start by calling the meeting to order. And we'll begin by acknowledging that we are gathered tonight in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral, present, and future territory of the Mi'kmaq people. And tonight we gather with the intent followed by the living peace and friendship treaties. And we do so with respect, cooperation, and coexistence. You have an agenda, Council. I'll make one addendum to it. Under new business number 9, Councillor Wilson will be giving a notice of motion at that time.
Mayor, I'm wondering about a housekeeping item that came up on Monday evening's strategy meeting about some direction from the PAC with a request for information pertaining to the waterfront development project and some direction that came out of that meeting to council. Is that going to be addressed? Can that be addressed this evening, or would you prefer to defer that until the June meeting?
I think we would defer it till the
Okay.
June meeting, and we would also talk with the PAC group,
Okay, fair enough.
so they're
with that-
aware of the
what's happening?
discussions we had.
Well, with that decision made, I'd move that we approve the agenda as amended.
Okay, seconded by Councillor Lawrence Croft. You heard the motion on the question. All in favor? The motion is carried. We will proceed with the amended agenda. The first item is the minutes of the regular council meeting of May 14th.
I'll move that we accept the minutes.
I'll
Councillor-
second with a couple of amendments. to the
Okay.
minutes. One is that number 7 would be missing the notice of motion that I gave at the last council meeting. It's not reflected in the minutes. And the other thing is in the PAC report, 8.8.
Mm-hmm.
Wait a second, I'm just getting there. My note says that there are 3 motions listed, 2 of which state that the motion was carried, but the middle one in the list has no action showing.
Because the third motion addressed the second one, so it wasn't withdrawn, it wasn't voted on. It was changed with the third motion.
Well, I'm just wondering if for the sake of understanding for future generations who are reading the minutes, whether some comment could be there, a motion withdrawn or.
To explain it?
It wasn't withdrawn, no. I can discuss that with Dylan. Those are the
Yeah,
finer
okay.
points that I am not quite.
It just seemed odd not to have some comment there to explain its status.
So the motion, the second motion, was it amended to become the third motion?
No, I don't remember the exact technicality there. Sorry, I don't have it in front of me. Share with me.
So the
It's
first
8.8,
motion
it's
refers
8.8.
to sharing the information with the PAC, and the second one refers to referring it to the policy and strategy where we discussed referring it to the PAC. So I think, I wasn't there, but based on what I'm seeing here, I'm assuming what would have happened is that the first motion was made and then it was decided that something else, that the course of action would change. And so the second motion was carried to refer to policy and strategy, but the second motion just died.
Yeah,
Could there be a comment to that effect?
Motion was withdrawn.
Although whatever happened to it, it just, as a reader, it doesn't make sense to me.
There could be a note between the two
Okay.
to
I don't think withdrawn is the, but I'll
Die, I
look
think.
into it. I'll look into it.
Thank you for listening to that. Thank you.
Is that it, Councillor Carver?
Yes, those are the two comments I had about the minutes.
Okay, with those 2 points noted, all in favor? Motion's carried, thank you. Do we have any input from the public?
I wasn't here to hear those motions, so I can't comment on those. But do you want to hear from me tonight?
Well, we have an opportunity to hear from the
Thank
public.
you. Thank you very much, Mayor Devaney, council, staff, for accepting me to come and speak. I'm here to speak to you about Communities in Bloom, which I'm very excited about. And I wanted to fill you in with what we're doing, and because I think it's important that we communicate with you. Another two things I want to thank you about is you did give Communities in Bloom $500 to pay for our registration fee, and that's got us into the game. So that was great. And thank you very, very much for appointing Eric, the Deputy CAO, for participating in our meetings, and we certainly appreciate that very much indeed. So personally, I've never been involved in any organization that is so community building on every level. And that is why I am committing quite a lot of energy to this project, because I see that almost any organization in town has a way of slotting into Communities in Bloom, whether it's Boy Scouts or a church organization, school, or firefighters. There's a way for us to accommodate everyone. And it's truly weaving a fabric of connection in this community in a way that I've actually never seen before. It's inclusive of all and any community groups. The main goal is to enrich our town and enhance the residents' quality of life. That is the goal. In the spirit of most creative projects that enrich this town, it's bubbled up from the grassroots, and with projects such as we've seen from the festivals, the soccer club, the Home Bay Center. This is sort of testament to this incredible community, tiny but mighty community. Our CIB community is a collaboration of the Museum Society, the Garden Club, Talking Trees, Embark, which is the Home Bay Adaptive and Resilient Community, and the Chamber of Commerce. And we enthusiastically see the rich potential for Communities in Bloom. And of course, on our committee as well is the town of Mahone Bay as presence by Eric's participation. So the key stated mission of the CIB is to enhance green spaces through community involvement, thus generating civic pride and community building. That's it, the national organization's stated objective here. It's a national organization. The Governor General is a patron of this organization, and there are international communities that participate. So it's fairly high profile, and the exposure that Mahone Bay will receive through being involved will be quite vast. The judging exercise allows our committee and our town municipality to evaluate our potential, our improvements, and obtain valuable suggestions for the future. And indeed, actually, from watching webinars, we've seen that there are quite a few communities that participate in the judging just for the feedback they get from the judging process. So we are evaluated on our potential, what we're doing with what we have, and we are not compared to other communities. I want to tell you a little bit about our two judges, Frank Zonscherb and Martin Quinn, who's coming from Ontario. They each have 30+ years of professional careers in parks and cemetery planning, marketing strategy, design solutions in cities, industries, and the private sector, and horticulture. They're both very experienced CIB judges. So the people who are coming bring an incredible wealth of expertise in looking at communities' potential and want to see the best of what we can be. This is more than just about, you think communities in bloom and you think, well, okay, how many flowers can we put out? That's part of it. But the judges will be looking carefully at community involvement, environmental projects, history and heritage conservation, kids programming, tree management and green spaces, and of course, how attractive our town is. So yes, the flowers and public gardens. So many of the aspects that are of our town that we will be showcasing to our judges dovetail with the works and project of the town of Mahone Bay. It's just a complete hand in glove fit. So in terms of tree and asset management, the GHG program, alternative energy, the town's climate and environment committee, the renewed NPS and LUB. These are things that the judges really want to learn about and know about, and that we will be sharing with them. So they're coming on the 9th of July, and we, Communities in Bloom, will be sending a formal letter to council to let you know of how we see that meeting going on with the judges. We anticipate to spend an hour with you, and I know that they'll be very keen to meet council and staff. And I am here with an ask. So this committee is running on pure enthusiasm, zero budget. We wouldn't have got into this without you helping us with the $500, but we are looking carefully at our VIP judges, and we have 4 meals that we have to prepare for them that we need to cater. And at these meals, it's not just an entertainment budget. This is where we get them to sit with volunteers and community groups and continue to feed them information about how great our community is. We'd be very grateful if you could spare $400 for us that we could put towards this expense. We would like to suggest this is an investment in the community, and we'd be most grateful if you can help us with this expense. That's my ask. I do have one more. We have spoken with Eric about this, so he is in the loop with this. And I thank you, Eric, for all your support and attention. We know that the town has done its spring tidy up, but we really kind of need that last minute in July to clean up Tim Hortons cups and various things so that the town really looks neat before they come. I think that's it. Thank you very much for our time, and I hope I've imparted some of the enthusiasm that our really fabulous group, you have to admit, Eric, we laugh a lot, and it's a super group, right?
It's a party in here.
It is. It's fabulous. So I don't know if you have any questions. Thank you, Mrs. Senator.
Yes, Penny had submitted a letter through correspondence, and I was reading it when I was doing my homework. You spoke about us being available on July 9th to spend time with the judges, which is really nice. What type of experience should we expect to see?
Yeah, good question. So I'm actually in charge of the judges' itinerary. And so I'm literally going around with a stopwatch and timing all of our meetings around town, something that I have years of experience doing happens. We have scheduled an hour to come to town council to meet Mayor Devaney, hopefully, and council members. We plan to sit with you, staff members, perhaps Dylan, Eric, councillors who are able to be here, and go through an agenda that of the things, the environmental projects that the town has done, things that we're so proud of. GHG,
The fishing woods that we're hoping to. Put
things
down
that
at
you're
the ward.
hoping to do, absolutely. So because we have to keep to a really tight schedule, we thought we would talk with you to figure out that agenda, have it written and up on the screen so that we can say, okay, we've got 5 minutes or 3 minutes for each topic and time for questions. It has to be on a really tight time frame. So we anticipate that they'll arrive here. It'll be a refreshment stop for them. We will have had them from 8 o'clock in the morning and we hope to get here by 10. They'll sure be very charming and curious about what the town is doing. And certainly we're a small but mighty group collectively.
Your worship, I don't know if it says any impact or not, but I have in my calendar that that's the moving day for the nursing home.
Oh, July 9th is? Oh, that's gonna be in.
Okay,
I know that, I don't know whether that's still the case, but that's what we're told. You
I wonder if that would tie up any traffic on Main Street.
can be assured of it.
Oh, excuse me.
Well, they might come in through Blockhouse and off the 103 or any trucks.
No, we're talking about the people.
The people-
Oh, yeah, that
Thank
transition.
you for
Oh.
mentioning that. That's pretty impactful. That's pretty impactful.
Councillor Carver.
Yeah, is that something that staff can follow up with the nursing home to find out more about what it might look like? Or is it, I mean, I'm just aware it's not a council project, Communities in Bloom, or should Communities in Bloom be
Well,
doing that follow-up with the nursing home?
I would say that they should cross their Ts and dot their Is and make sure they're not gonna create a problem for themselves or for the nursing homes.
yeah.
What type of day would you anticipate these
10 in the
people
morning. That's what we're aiming
to
for.
meet with council
To
for
be-
the hour, 10 o'clock in the
And
morning?
yes, we've scheduled an hour. And
Okay.
we will have discussed exactly what we want them to hear from us. Communities in Bloom is evaluated on what they call a grid that cover environment, community involvement, and beautification aspect is really one small thing. They're very interested in, they want to know about tree management and tree assets. They want to know, you know, do you have a bylaw or not? And it's just all of that information that they're very, very curious about. Yeah. No. continue.
Just a comment on Councillor Otis Croft question, a reference to the planned fishing wharf. The Communities in Bloom instructions say not to talk about plans. They want to know what you've already done.
Okay.
They'll tell us in the feedback, put a fishing wharf in there.
Yeah.
Oh,
They want to see what's already been done or already accomplished.
What have we got?
but it's in the budget, so.
Okay.
Yeah, it's in the budget. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. It's been budgeted.
Okay.
I'm just wearing my counselor hat now. And I am a member of the Communities in Bloom group. But as counselor, I would like to make a motion based on this suggestion that Ms. Herder has presented to us, asking the town for some financial help with the expenses of the day with the judges. And will I do that as a motion, a notice of motion now,
For the next meeting.
right now, or wait till a new business?
Or you can do it then if you want.
Okay.
CAO?
Might I suggest to avoid any perceived conflict if another councillor would like to
With
make
someone
that
else.
a
Oh, yeah,
motion,
thank
that
you,
might be
thank you.
advisable.
Thank you very much.
Mayor, I'll move that item along in new business.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you,
Thank you.
councillor. Thank you,
Thank you.
councillor Carver.
Thank you very much for hearing us, and if you want, please give any of us a call, certainly from me. If there's any little detail that you'd like to know about, we're happy to share. Thank you. I'd like to speak to you, Kaylee, at some point about the children's playground, because you're going to show them around. Know more about all the work you did there.
I think you guys have my phone number.
Okay.
Anytime.
Thank you very much. Good evening.
Good, thank you.
Okay. All right, well, let's go to, there's no presentations other than what we just heard from. Correspondence, 5.1, the letter from Minister Lohr on the changes to the Financial Measures Act. You have a copy of the letter that you.
I have a question.
So it's Councillor
I
Kerr.
noticed that they had, at the very end of his report, I think it's the third item from the bottom. It talks about, the subdivision, which I'm very interested in. And I know we are doing a subdivision, policy,
Mhm.
and I just want to know how this may affect our plans. It refers to 31 and 78. It's the second one from the bottom of the list. Oh, no, sorry. Clarify, sorry, it's the third one. Clarify deemed as easement on a plan of subdivision is retroactive to the date of the survey or approval of the plan of subdivision, even if that predates the act. And it was given royal assent, so it is
Done.
So as far as the review of the subdivision bylaw, it's currently being reviewed and vetted against the current versions of legislation out there. So whenever processes are developed within any new versions that are adopted, we'll take that into consideration.
Mhm.
So to know how that will exactly play out and what that would look like, I'm unsure of at this point in time, because we're still in a review stage. But it's something that will be considered as part of the bylaw and the implementation of that.
But it's under the MGA, so would it not override anything?
Well, any
we do?
bylaw that we do has to go through a legislative review to make sure that it doesn't contradict any legislation that's
Mhm.
out there. So if we had anything in a draft bylaw that contradicts the legislation, it would be flagged and changed. So that would be one aspect where this is relatively new. It might take a second look through, just to make sure that these new legislations aren't contradictory to what we're hoping to achieve.
Hmm. Councillor Carver?
Your worship, it seemed to me there was so much. And so many items and so many changes in this document. And even though it's late in the term, I wondered if there's some way of inviting our ministry representatives, our consultants, to come and talk to us about it. Or some way of just learning more about it. I found some of the changes hard to understand. And would like a chance to learn more about it. I don't know how others feel.
We can ask.
Yeah, you can ask if you have specific questions about the changes that are going on through the Financial Measures Act, then I'm more than happy to take those on and send those questions to our municipal advisors to see if there are clarifications, and if it still comes that we'd like to have a discussion with them, then absolutely we can request that our advisor come and speak to council.
Mhm. And there is another subdivision one here too that I know as well, but I think a lot of these have been rushed through to help with the
The housing
housing
crisis.
situation.
Yeah.
So, a lot of people wouldn't understand. Some are just for the Halifax Charter, I noted, and others are the MGA.
And if we're gonna be discussing our subdivision bylaw, it would be good to have answers to those, or clarifications to those questions. When we sit down to have those discussions. I'd be remiss if I didn't note that the deputy mayor has joined us. Welcome. Councillor Feeney.
Mayor, I noticed one of the many changes of the antiquated document that it's, and these are generally, I think, all
Which
upgrades.
antiquated document?
Upgrade is the elimination of our requirement to post notices in public newspapers. And of course, not so long ago, and maybe even now, that's still a very significant cost to the town.
Mhm.
I'd say that if we take the direction of the legislation, that would have everyone really going to our website, more often. So I just think that we should be mindful of that and make sure that, we need to keep the website really up and running and
Yes.
updated, and if we're going to reap the benefits of lower costs of not needing to
And make sure
advertise.
we publish the
Mhm.
notices that we would normally publish in the
Elsewhere.
press.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay, Councillor Carver and then
If I
Councillor
may, thank you.
Lawrence-Croft.
So another, I had a couple of specific questions already, but one of them I just want to put on the table because it raised concern for me. It said, I believe that it says that a municipality can sell a piece of property at below market value
Yeah.
to anybody, not just a not-for-profit.
Mm.
So it could be being at below market value to a private developer.
Hmm.
And I find that concerning.
When I saw that, my first thought was that we're trying to tempt developers to put some money into developing housing, not just for particular economic groups. But I also thought we'll have to be really careful and crossing our Ts and dotting our Is, and the whole notion of conflict of interest, and the realities of that, if we come to make that kind of a decision with a regular developer. Did you have a question, like the minister's staff, about what the intent was, or?
Why they made that decision? Well, do you think they're gonna tell us? if
I
it
don't
does?
think it really refers to us, 'cause we're not big landholders like some of our municipal
I think
friends
it's a
are.
real mistake. I mean, it's been one of the safeguards we've had
Yes,
to foster affordable housing.
as former councillor Bain and former deputy mayor Noss reminded us when they came to council to talk about the need for us to sell land at market price, except for when.
Mhm.
Councillor Owens-Croft.
Yes, and I think we've had previously talked about communication with our development office and us as councillors knowing sort of what's going on in town. I noticed there's more authority given to the CAO to approve like development permits and whatnot, and I just wonder if that's gonna further break down communication here around the council table between the administration and us. So I think there's a lot to discuss about some of these changes that may affect us and a future council coming in. I think it's worth having somebody have a chat with us.
Yeah, special session, half-day session maybe, yeah. Deputy Mayor, did you have a comment?
My only comment is that it's not lost on me that this was an omnibus.
Yeah.
Whatever you call it.
Every seat's full.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and so, when I see that kind of stuff, I know that there will be some not well thought out initiatives that are put in there, and unfortunately, they'll be trapped by the interest to push them through in the omnibus mode. I don't know how much weight we can put on to maybe slow down some of the things. Some of the changes are good, as have been noted, but some of the changes, I think there is huge concern around the impact.
Have the changes been passed?
The some have,
Some
they,
have,
right
yeah.
beside it, it says, some they're waiting for the regulations, but most of them passed.
Passed, yes.
Yes.
Okay,
It says beside them.
received also.
And the,
Councillor Carver.
and the one about selling below market value has received royal assent. So,
Okay,
But it says we can sell, it doesn't mean that we have to sell.
no, that's right.
So that's up to the council's decision.
Yeah.
To not sell at the low market value.
It just opens up.
It opens another can of worms.
A can of worms that we don't need to open in
Yeah.
a time when the developer approach has failed to address housing issues. Just, they could have said, well, you can, if, for me, a better way would have said, you can actually give for free to nonprofits, if that's what they want to encourage is for addressing housing issues, but I think, we'll live with what we have to get, but I think it, like Councillor Carver said, it might be very helpful for representative of DMH to walk us through some of these and
That's right. There's always things beyond the obvious
Yes.
that
Yeah.
we're not picking up on. So CAO, you'll contact the minister responsible, the office, and see if you can get one of his knowledgeable staff down. Spend some time with us.
Is it worth doing that kind of thing as a collective, as with other councils, as opposed to just
Yeah.
this?
It's a good idea.
Except that their circumstances may be a little different than ours, but I do think we can offer them the opportunity.
Think about it anyway.
Yeah,
Can also do it remotely too.
get a room at the fire hall and.
Yeah, so I can reach out to the department, but it would be helpful if there are specific inquiries or parts that you want addressed, that you send those to me so I could prime whoever's coming to be prepared to answer the pressing issues that you want to bring forward.
If you get a commitment for them to come, we'll give you a list of questions.
Okay, that's the part of it. All right, I'll do what I can.
Well, you've got the first few questions anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. Next, we have the MODL's public hearing notice. Pardon me? The motion to receive and file.
Yes.
Seconder. Councillor Owens Croft, all in favor? Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Next, we have the MODL letter, public hearing notice. Government's busy, provincial government's busy. In their efforts to turn off the coastal action plan. Councillor Carver.
So, this letter from the District of Lunenburg, I assume we've received because abutting municipalities are supposed to let each other know when.
What they're doing?
Yeah, in terms of that kind of legislation. So I'm wondering if Mahone Bay does have any role or any response. And if so, what process would that take?
I don't think Mahone Bay really has had a response history on the coastal action plan. Where we supported it, but
We've had an extensive history of opposition to the formally proposed coastal action plan.
That's right.
I don't think we've never had a commentary about the municipalities' attempt to go their own way on that topic. So we've had extensive conversations around this table about the province's overtures and have shared with them both formally and informally our concerns
Yes.
with negative unintended consequences that could impact our town, a town that's built almost entirely around watercourses. And the negative impact of the setbacks as an aspect of the legislation. As it relates to the municipalities' overtures, and again, they're the only one of the 49 municipalities that are charging into this fight. My sense of things is that we were going to have some commentary about our opinion about that. We could do that, but we haven't done it yet.
No.
So if we were going to do that, I would think it would be wise for us to coordinate that and figure out what core message that would be.
Coordinate our opinion with MODL or with?
Well, we decided we had an opinion and decided if we wanted to share it and how it would be shared if we wanted to share it. So those are several questions on the topic. And either act as an intervener or share with them our perspective as a municipality versus our perspective as individuals, and then figure out what that would look like. So that would be a piece of work to figure out what that would look like.
Councillor Carver?
So as we're talking, I'm thinking, is this something that council could refer to the Climate and Environment Committee for some consideration and recommendation for council to act?
Yeah, my only issue is that even with this notice, we don't have the detail of what changes they put in place, and so I guess the question for us is, it would be good to get the detail in some
And
way.
that's
shape, or
what's
form.
this notice of meeting,
Hmm.
that's where you'd find the detail.
It's all online, you know, so.
Hmm.
Sort of wondering, because by the time, then this is almost done, right? There'll be a virtual one on June 4th. By the time June 4th rolls around, they will have done the public information session. We will not have, I don't think we'll have our ducks in a row to actually respond in a coherent manner. Whether there is something that staff can help us, yes, look into and see if there's any crossovers with the conversations we've had when we had during our steering planning conversations. Because if the changes they have trigger a situation where a neighbor, so going towards Vegas Go, if a neighbor on one side of the borderline has a different set of, I guess, regulations than the other, then that would be a weird scenario for us to have.
Mhm.
But I think that's not particularly uncommon between municipalities. That's why it's so important that the province, they were taking a uniform approach to it. But now that's gone by the by. And it would be almost impossible, I would think, to get that kind of collaboration between a number of municipalities to have the same individually legislated requirements than the province would have brought. Councillor Feeney?
Mayor, I think there's two aspects that impact the town directly. One would be the watershed and that committee. I would think that the pending legislation in the municipality around the watershed and all the property that is owned by the town. And potentially, so we would like to have an opinion on whether this legislation affects anything in that area. I think that would be a wise thing to do. And secondarily, we share a harbor with property that would be affected by this legislation. So as far as a fact-finding information and to figure out exactly how these new rules on the municipal level in the municipality would impact property that's adjacent to town. I mean, that would be a wise thing for us to do. Whether we need to weigh in with an opinion one way or the other, my sense of things is this legislation will pass the modal council. I mean, they announced it on the 3rd or 4th of January. Of course, with the expectation that it was going to be backstopped by provincial legislation. So, time will tell where it goes, but I think we just, watch what's happening. Maybe individually we attend a meeting and become as educated as we can on the topic and see where it lies.
Okay.
I wouldn't think it would be this time, there'd be a lot of virtue in diving in with an opinion from the town at this point.
Okay.
Just one thought.
Councillor Carver?
I'd just like to ask the deputy CAO what the usual method is for municipalities to comment on the abutting municipalities bylaws or where they interact.
I mean, I think if there's a municipal unit that has direct impact from the legislation of a neighboring municipality, there's a room for a conversation or a comment there. I would also suggest the tactic of waiting and seeing what that might be, or potentially reaching out to, or if it's public, seeing what the proposed changes are, because we may be able to glean some information from what those proposed changes are and determine what impacts they might have on the town and then go forward from there. It's not often that, Lunenburg County is unique as we have several in one municipality, in one county, and we all work together on various issues. But generally, in larger municipalities, I've seen they tend to do their things and hope that it comes out for themselves.
So if their plan is presented at this meeting that they're inviting us to go to, if we were to have a motion to ask to direct staff to review their package and identify areas of concern that may impact the town of Mahone Bay? Right?
The timing's still tricky. We have a council meeting on the 11th and their public hearing is on the 13th of June, so it's a little bit tight, but the deputy mayor has something.
No, so one of the, we used to have an item on the CAO's report around, for the longest time, when we were doing our own MPS and land use bylaw review for our staff to liaise with them, with model on that review process. And I was wondering how some of this stuff was missed from that perspective. Some of the things that I've looked at now seems like maybe we might not be impacted negatively because they're removing some of the issues that we talked about that were concerning. But I'm hopeful that there might be it doesn't have to be in a council on council kind of conversation, but a staff conversation that raises issues that we can act on, and it doesn't become an embarrassing situation where we have a situation that it's just
Okay,
a property line that's causing a difference. That would be very helpful. I think.
thank you. Councillor Scott and then CAO.
Some of the background to the coastal legislation was because there were municipalities giving permits to people to build on floodplains and inappropriate places who had storm damage and wanted the province to pay for their repairs, very rarely relocating, but wanting to rebuild in the same spot that had washed away or had severe damage. This was to sort of remove that issue. So I think the only thing we should be, with us not supporting a coastal program, I think, if the lower part of Main Street was to wash out and millions and millions of damage to people's homes and whatnot, would we be responsible as a municipality to help people out? And I think that's sort of what they were trying to avoid, the future plans, because we don't know when permits are, we don't know when things are okayed, and as long as.
We have a land use bylaw that addresses setbacks and relativity to the high water mark, using that formula that's above my head. We heard many times, so, I think that the situation that we found ourselves in when we reviewed this in the context of the land use bylaw was that there were so many, it butted heads on so many fronts, especially I think the analogy with the planners was that it's not so much like if something catastrophic happened, even a fire, would the person be allowed to rebuild? So there's like 70–80% of all the houses in Mahone Bay fit within the setback that's prohibited from development under the original proposed legislation, which is, we're like, how is it possible that you preclude people from building within 50 meters of the high water mark when we live in a town that's built 5 meters from the high water mark? And by the way, this is not only the ocean, but this is also any water course, including the Ernst Brook. And of course, that was a major driver of all of the conversations about the setback rules we used. This is tributaries. This is the relativity to mush. There's any water course is part of that legislation. So anyway, not to relitigate it this evening, but I think it's wise for us to find out the information that we can find out. And I'm sure that legislation is going to evolve too, because there's literally many thousands of landowners who will be impacted by this. I'm sure they'll have an opinion, and there's probably going to be an entire legislative process of amendments. And I think we just need to have a process where we think we're being apprised of it to the degree that it matters to us. And again, maybe it doesn't matter to us because it's not in our town.
I would be happy if our climate and energy manager and other staff had a look at the district's proposal. And flagged any issues that they thought might impinge on the Mahone Bay interests. So. Yep, the deputy CAO now wants to speak.
I was just saying.
So is the deputy mayor,
Yeah.
but deputy CAO.
Yeah, I was just going to say anything that I would have suggested has been brought up at the table. I think right now it would be wise to keep things at a staff level and review what's out there. We do have resources on staff, specifically our climate and energy program manager that could give a good solid review of this along with myself. So with that, that's sort of the avenue I would suggest taking.
Okay. Deputy mayor?
I just wanted to add, I think, in addition, I think that and the planning team.
Absolutely.
I think they were involved in the initial conversations as to when we were having this chat, they might be able to just pull out what the issues we had flagged when we were having the original conversations. So it doesn't take long to have a back and forth.
Okay.
Yeah. So do you need a motion for that?
Yes, please.
Okay, I'll second.
I'd like to move the council direct staff, is it direct staff or?
Yeah.
Whatever direct staff to provide a brief, quick analysis of the impact of models, MPS and land use bylaw
Okay,
on the town's planning process.
and will be like it for the next council meeting
No,
or two?
one that can get to it.
Yes.
Okay,
It's months.
all right,
As soon as possible.
thank you. Do we have a seconder for the motion? Councilor Ravenscroft seconds the motion on the question. All in favor? Motion's carried.
I was waiting for you, Ted.
Yes.
I know.
I've been saying it in a second, but.
I wasn't trying to say, but she has.
Oh, I didn't see you second, I apologize.
Oh, I didn't.
She didn't.
No, never mind. It's,
She was going to.
I was,
Much
yeah.
ado about nothing. Okay, let's go to La Prochaine. Communities in Bloom, did you have more that you wanted to add, Councilor Kerr?
I don't, other than, just take a look at the two live links that are in the letter. Just so you get a sense of.
All right, thank you. Let's go to section 6, staff reports to council. This is the end of the month. All the dirty laundry's on the line. Does anyone have any questions for our deputy CAO, who's got a pretty easy go with all this?
Hey, I like that.
Other CAO has been away.
Mayor, just a couple points of clarity. Item 4, which is the area item around the incremental wind farm capacity coming. I know that this motion or that stated objective has been on our agenda for well over a year, I believe, where we've directed staff to execute the PPA. I'm just wondering, at this point, are we really, this note implies that that is a done deal and council has already made the decision. And I'm wondering if that's just the vernacular that we're using inside this note, or if that is if that's truly where we are from a decision-making perspective. I can't recall how far down the road we are on ratifying that we're going that route. And maybe we will go that route in the fullness of time. I just couldn't remember if that is in the rearview mirror and that decision's been made, or if there's still things for us to contemplate.
Councilor Wilson?
Yeah, thanks.
Anytime.
There are a lot of things to contemplate.
Fair enough.
It isn't a done deal, although the intent to go forward with Potentia has been signed by
Fair enough.
the deputy chair of the board,
Mhm.
and they're toiling away on various aspects of it. But as per my note that I sent around 3 or 4 days ago, there are still a lot of outstanding questions in my mind about how you deal with penalties and how you deal with the bottom of pricing and all those kinds of questions. So it isn't a done deal, but the
Mhm.
train is chugging slowly
Mhm.
out of the station.
Councilor Lawrence Crowe.
I'm wondering when we can expect this update. It says that it was discussed May 7th at the board meeting. Other than what Kelly has sent around. You know, we're really missing a lot of information from area and.
And we
updates.
are, I think, missing information as well, particularly as it relates to PPA. And when those elements are all going to be on the table to the point where we, council, can make a decision on that same PPA pricing. And the meeting that we had in early May still left us there, you know? As soon as we get this and as soon as we get that and this is coming and that's coming. You basically, you can't get blood out of the stone.
So Mayor, I guess with, in the interest of time this evening, maybe we'll just amend that note to, instead of May 2024, we'll make it July 2024. And it'll come up in the next 2 months, I guess. But it's not like it's gonna get resolved between now and Friday.
That's right.
I think it's the
Now
point.
between now and Friday.
Fair
We
enough.
got a meeting next week, I think, don't we? Board meeting,
I don't know how to treat.
area, okay.
Pardon me, Mayor, one other item, hey, sorry, you can go around the table if, and I'll-
Councilor Kerr.
I have a question about the climate and energy managers report on number 6, the urban forest management plan. And it refers to a contract being done up between the company Atlantic Tree Solutions to carry out some work in regards to the management of street trees. It sounds as if that means they're going to carry out some work on the street trees, but maybe it means that's part of developing the urban forest management plan. So it's developing documentation policy.
It would be the plan and the policy relating to street trees, not the
Oh,
management of
okay,
the actual
it was
trees
just the way
themselves.
it was phrased that misled me, thank you. I was worried about trees being cut again.
Hmm.
I had another question, it was about the development of the stormwater bylaw. Where are we with that? Is it on the agenda for the policy and strategy committee?
It was brought up to be on a future agenda, but I'm not
We
sure
haven't
what
struck a
date,
date.
the date hasn't been struck,
But
but it
it's-
is on the radar of the bylaw and policy
Okay,
development.
so it's on the running list of
It
things
is,
that, yeah. okay.
yeah. Here,
Councilor Wilson.
I'm gonna say where it is on the list, yeah.
I have a question. It's item 14, but I'm not quite sure what category. It's about the lane going up the solar garden. It says that we're going to receive a report in May, which I guess we didn't. So do you have any idea when we might?
I don't know when that report's coming specifically, but I will check.
Councilor Feeney.
Final thing for me, Mayor, is on the item 29, I think, is item 29 related to the meeting last week, public meeting last week about the project on West Main Street? It is, okay. It's a little cryptic. We might want to, if this is gonna stay on the agenda for a few more months, we might just wanted to note exactly what that relates to. Other than that, thank you.
Councilor Kerr.
Oh, yes, thank you. I did have my hand up sort of. I had a question about the solid waste numbers from
Which item
NJSD.
is it?
I don't know if it's wherever they are, they're down near the bottom of the report.
And it's-
The solid, and are the numbers that are being reported there specifically Town of Mahone Bay numbers? They know how much solid waste we're
Yes.
sending in?
Yeah,
Oh,
It's
Yeah,
in the
so
I
monthly report, the
Yeah.
totals for the area and then each of the municipalities.
right, okay. Okay, yeah, I should know that.
In that regard, how
Yes.
do they know what came from home bay? Because I've seen the truck, it'll go through home bay, then it'll pick up in blockhouse and so on and so forth. So how do they figure that out?
I asked the question of the MJSB people, and they seemed to be comfortable that they knew what was coming from where.
They have
So they,
scales,
pardon me?
they have a scale on the truck.
That's how they're doing it? Okay. So that may be a little bit less accurate than the one at the way
But
station,
anyway,
but
okay.
it does.
I always
give them
wondered how
an
they did
idea.
that, because the truck goes from one municipality to another and keeps
I
picking
think
up,
we
so.
had that, I think I looked at that, talked to them about that, because there was a question on social media about that same item. How do they weigh it in between?
Yeah, okay.
Councillor Lawrence Cross,
Number 8,
Deputy Mayor.
number 8, talks about the support and welcoming initiatives. We really, have we really participated in anything as a council? Things seem to have fallen on council nights.
Yeah, so,
And, you know, are there any things coming up? I know I picked up some folks and drove them home carrying their groceries and things like that, but that's more as an individual, not as a counselor. Are there any things that we can,
so you're right, scheduling has been a bit of an issue. I haven't been in touch with the staff person who works on the settlement in recent weeks. So I'm not sure if they have anything coming up in the near future or not, but it is time I probably should reach out to them.
and does this include the CAO's report? Like, it's an attached piece, or is that a separate? Is that separate?
Nope, the CAO's report
It's
comes
all-
after this.
So we have time to discuss that after the staff report, okay.
The whole thing is.
Oh, it's all
Thing is
one.
a CAO
Okay,
report.
I'm just wondering where we are with the financials with the area. Are we any closer to getting that information? Number 4, the speaks to the weekly meetings with staff in the area, so I'm just,
Yeah, we have to talk, our finance staff, as far as I understand, our finance staff is working very closely with the RELC, the Riverport
Yeah.
people, attempting to clarify what are the realities of the finances for that particular organization and how they relate to our numbers in the town of Mahone Bay. I confess I'm not aware at this point of the latest standing of that effort. Our finance manager has been away and haven't had a chance to discuss it. Councillor
I
Wilson?
think it's public knowledge that an accounting person, don't know the designation exactly, has been hired to basically go through, I think, all of the 2023 journal entries and all of the 2024 entries up till the end of the fiscal year. And the information we had from last week, when it was the 7th, was that we would have that report by June. And our board meeting is on June 13th, by the way.
Okay, so hopefully at the June 13th. meeting.
and will this also be the one with Anna Ganesh? We were waiting for financials, that person is no longer here, or
No, she's not.
she's still there, so are there updates from her with the?
I think the last time we spoke about Annie Ganesh, there's one set of invoices that have yet to be processed to the federal government on the solar garden projects. But that it was ending shortly. So you can take that for what it's worth. Right?
Yeah, and if I may add, the invoices from December that were sent in December were paid in April, I believe. But there were invoices submitted in January, February, and March. So you can assume that there's gonna be a 4-month gap probably for all of them.
Deputy Mayor.
It's just feedback for the CEO, we did change the language on the peace, what did you call it, peace and tranquility bylaw?
Yes.
It needs to be reflected on the front side, so.
Peace and tranquility
Peace and
bylaw.
tranquility bylaw.
Okay.
First, it still doesn't have such.
Any other comments or questions on the CAO's report?
Yeah. That's on the go.
Okay, entertain a motion to receive the report for information purposes.
So moved.
Seconder, Counselor Now on the motion. All in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. Let's go to Counselor Carver, development of policy for filming in Mahone Bay.
Yes, so, as we all know, after having a conversation, council and the chamber, we understood that there were, many opportunities for improving communication, and perhaps, understanding about what is entailed when a film company wants to use our town for their production. So, it seemed like a good idea that the town develop a policy around film productions. So I'm making a motion that council of the town of Mahone Bay direct staff to prepare a draft film production policy for the town that will ensure that filming has minimal disruption to the daily life of citizens, businesses, and visitors by describing requirements for such factors as permitting, traffic control, and effective communication protocols with all stakeholders, as well as any other relevant factors, and further that the Mahone Bay Tourism and Chamber of Commerce be consulted in the preparation of the draft policy. So move.
Do we have a seconder, Deputy Mayor?
Second, and on the question.
On the question.
I was wondering, wouldn't this be better if it was a policy that was in relation to any stoppages for any purpose rather than just film production? Because there will be other things, for example, I think that would possibly have the same impact, but would not be film production. And so, in that instance, what would apply as a policy if this was just film production?
CAO?
So I've done some preliminary research on the topic, and places that do have a lot of filming have film specific policies, because there's so many factors that feed into that it becomes a unique case. Generally speaking, a lot of the other things that may cause stoppages have already, to an extent, been considered through the various permits that we require when those things arise. It just happens that filming can tap into so many of those that is often treated separately. So I would recommend, if filming is to be the focus, then it could be its own policy, as many other things are accounted for. And the joy of local government is, as things arise, we can identify them, and if we need to develop policies on other issues, then we can potentially at that time and consolidate as needed. But I would suggest that if we want to look at film, then we would do film independently.
Question?
On the question? All in favor? Motion's carried. Let's go to committee reports. Climate and Environment Committee.
So this report has a motion, a recommendation to council. And it has a very long whereas section, which I won't read, but it has a very long and intricate and detailed actual motion or resolution. And I'm a little undecided whether to read the whole thing. Do you have a suggestion, Your Worship?
No.
No,
Dave, I think everyone is.
I already have it in the minutes.
You know,
Yeah.
okay, it's all there highlighted, and I would move that council approve the recommendation of the Climate and Environment Advisory Committee as presented in its report of the date, report of May 1st, 2024. On the June or the May 30th council agenda. Got all that, okay. That's the motion.
do we have a seconder?
A second.
Okay, moved and seconded. On, Councillor Carver on the question?
Yes, on the question. So just to clarify that the motion is to encourage NSFM to interact with the government around the absence of coastal action protection.
So does that mean that the town is writing to NSFM, asking them to promote it?
Essentially with all the items that are detailed in the motion, in the recommendation rather.
So then the motion becomes that the mayor be directed to write to?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, okay,
On behalf of the town, yeah.
yeah.
Did the CIO had his hand up?
Okay, sorry.
Yeah, just where it is a lengthy motion and reading through it, you know, by carrying this motion, it would be corresponding with NSFM to encourage them to work with or encourage the province to take a specific stance on coastal protection. So by way, it would be also making the town have a stance on coastal protection, and the act that became not, and with conversations around the public hearing with the District of Lunenburg that we just previously had, it becomes a layered request from the Climate and Energy Committee. So I would just like to put that out there for consideration as well.
Deputy Mayor.
So, with all due respect, I would not be supporting a motion to support this recommendation going forward, because it's not clear to me what the motion is. Just reading this, and I do understand, I guess, what's being presented as the motion, but just reading the motion as put in this committee meeting minutes, I don't get that. It doesn't come, it's not clear to me what exactly the committee is asking council to do for us to recommend. And so I think even recommending as we structure motions, I don't know if it was you Eric, who wrote this.
No, it wasn't me this time.
It is helpful that as the motion comes to council table, it's very, very clear what is council endorsing or not endorsing. In this particular case, I don't know what I'm endorsing or not because of the way it's layered. And maybe it's because it's the jargon in it that's confusing to me. That just makes it difficult. And maybe we can take it back for it to be very clear as to what council will be recommending.
Councillor Wilson and Councillor Ravenscroft.
Yeah, I voted against this motion at committee. Because I think it's a huge overreach. And what in essence is being asked here is that NSFM asked the province to give legal control over all of the shorelines of Nova Scotia. Basically, among many other things, it's a huge overreach. And it flies in the face of what we've already said when we refused to endorse the NSFM request a month or so ago to support their letter about the coastal action in the first place. So this would be contradicting what we did about a month ago.
Okay. Councillor Owens Scott.
I'm just wondering, this seems more like a resolution that would be presented at the AGM by a group to me. Is it? It just seems like so, like overreach for like one council. I think if there were multiple groups who felt this way, it would more, I feel it would belong in the resolution part of the AGM that comes forward every year. And sometimes the same ones come up, like the cap comes up every year. And it's voted, you know.
Put it down promptly,
Yes.
as egregious as it is.
But, you know, this would give a certain awareness amongst all members of the NSFM.
Councillor Kerr.
Excuse me, I have a cough drop in my nose now. The resolutions at the annual meeting are now all screened through a resolutions committee at NSFM. So this kind of resolution will have to go through that process anyway. No, I take the concerns at face value, absolutely. It's a lot. But I'm standing by the motion
Okay,
for the committee.
you've heard the motion. Anything further on the question? Sorry,
Yeah.
Premier?
So would there be interest to withdraw the motion for it to be crafted better rather than it being defeated? And
Crafted differently.
differently, yeah.
We could certainly,
Yeah,
Councillor Wilson and I could certainly take that message back to the committee.
and do you feel that that would have value? Because as it is right now, it's very difficult to even wrap my head around. I get the gist, but the legalese in it just makes it untenable for me to support it.
So you're asking whether we'd withdraw the motion and just go back to the council with three.
Yeah, just have a better crack at it to reduce.
In anticipation that the motion would be unlikely to pass and.
If the ask is something that the committee knows as council we don't support, then it doesn't make sense to bring it to the table, but if it's something that they feel council can support it. We craft it, I don't know.
I think you would end up withdrawing this motion and then making a motion that it be handed back to the committee. Council would like to see them take a second shot at it.
Well, procedurally, the committee made a recommendation to council. So council has to deal with the recommendation that they're providing us. And we can accept the recommendation and ratify the recommendation, or we can vote the recommendation
Oh, yeah,
down.
we can.
I mean, you know,
Deputy
we're all-
Mayor is suggesting that is there some middle ground here?
So, sure, we have 2 meetings a month, come back a month from now with another motion, maybe that one will have a better chance of getting approved.
Councillor Carter?
So procedurally, if this motion stays on the table, it is voted, if it does not pass, can a motion on this topic be brought back again? Because of the policy about whether or not,
Significant
You can
new
qualify with the
information.
topic.
it's not the same motion, and it would be a different motion that came back.
But would it be the same motion? Would it be a different motion with the same intention, with the same purpose? So the purpose of this motion, as I read it, I wasn't at the committee meeting, correct me if I'm wrong, is to have a letter to the NSFM stating suggested changes to legislation, as I'm reading, in support of coastal protections and giving the rights of coastal protections to municipalities. So at the crux of it, I think that is what it would be, and I wouldn't be able to imagine reframing that motion enough to change the purpose of what it is. So even if you came back and had put it in succinct terms as I just brought it, it's still the same intention of the motion. And to volley it back and forth from council to the committee, it also could give a perception that the council's bouncing things back until get something they like. And that might not be a situation that council would want to get into. So from a procedural standpoint, I would suggest that if there were amendments that council wanted to make to this motion to make it more tenable for council to act on, then they could, or the motion could be voted on as is.
Yeah.
But as far as referring it back to a committee to try to amend it for a more digestible motion, I don't think that's the proper move.
The questions I have is, you know, committees, you know, aspirational objectives of crafting the recommendation, going through the committee meeting, making the recommendation to council. Fair enough, but is the committee cognizant of the many, many conversations and the 2 formal documents we forwarded to the NSFM through the round of consultation on this topic, as well as the council's response to a request to, you know, to forward a lobbying document to the NSFM only 2 months ago? Like, it's not crystal clear to me that the committee is cognizant of the fact that where the town's status quo position on the topic is. And if they're trying to change the council's mind, fair enough. Like, I'm all for having an open conversation about the merits of changing the position, but that has to be done through a process where, you know, various opinions can be presented and people can deliberate on the virtues of those positions. You know, randomly, you know, so I just don't think like this process would get us to the promised land. So if we have a committee that is advocating for a committee that's for a position that's diametrically opposed to a long-standing position held by council over the last 3 years, I mean, like the committee is a committee of council. So, I mean, if there was it's unfortunate that this got here through this mechanism versus having, hey, listen, let's have an extended committee meeting with the council to talk about, do we want to change our mind on these topics? Like, I'm open-minded, but I don't know how I could support this motion this evening. And I think we're in a sticky wicket because it's here. It's here. I think it's going to be voted down, and that's a problem.
So I'm prepared, and I'd like advice on this, I'm prepared to withdraw the motion and take it back to the committee for more discussion. They might want to come back as is, or they might want to revise it. But it could come back to a later agenda if the committee wishes.
So, taking what the deputy CEO said, and the process, I'm not confident, because I don't have maybe it's the ability to have that interpretation that you have, that makes me not confident that I can sort of say they will come back with the same thing, and that's why I was saying, let the committee talk about it again, and maybe what we interpret as the recommendation is not necessarily what they're talking about. Because if it was a clear, concise motion that says council direct staff to do X, Y, Z, that is very succinct and clear, I think this debate would have ended when the motion was put in place. But it's not that clear to me, at least, in the way it's been crafted, and that's why I was recommending take it back rather than defeat it, based on a technicality in terms of how the legalese is done.
Well, can you just take it back? We have a motion on the floor.
We have a motion on the floor.
We
I
do.
believe if the motion is voted on and the motion is defeated, then that's the end of it.
Yeah.
But if the mover of the motion were to withdraw the motion and the seconder agrees, then the committee may choose to review it and submit a new recommendation. It's not like they're asking council to vote a second time on basically the same issue, because they withdrew their motion on the first issue. There was no failure of it. CAO?
Well, and to the deputy mayor's point, you know, taking a motion back to a committee because it's unclear and the council does not feel comfortable voting on it because of the clarity of it is totally different from what I had suggested earlier of taking it back, because it wasn't something that the council felt comfortable with. So if the motion were to be withdrawn on the basis of it's unclear such that the council's unable to make a decision around it, then I wouldn't see a procedural issue with that.
Should we be making it clear to the committee that we're not asking them to write it so we can approve it? They may spend hours rewriting it. And we politically or morally still can't support what they're proposing.
Well, did you mind?
Sure.
Well, probably maybe through the chair, as the motion is taken back for the chair to actually inform the committee of the long-standing stance of council on the issue, so that they can decide based on that long-standing position of council, whether they want to present a motion that actually goes contrary to that or not. And maybe they will choose to say, okay, maybe this is not a huge dial now, and we can just bring a motion back, right?
It's interesting that the CAO usually attends those meetings and he wasn't at that one.
That one,
Yeah.
Councilor Feeney.
I just want to be crystal clear here on the procedure, because the committees are not, there's no veto by a council member on the committee. The council member that participates on a committee may not even be the committee chair. And even we have several committees that even all of the committee members aren't necessarily people from Mahone Bay, and that's been a big improvement too. What I'm saying is that, like, when the committee makes a recommendation and the recommendation gets woven into the minutes, and the minutes are presented at the council meeting, and the minutes and the motion is presented to council, and there's a motion and a seconder to the motion. Are we really, and it looks like there's not a plurality of support on council. Like, who are we really just, can we just yank it? And or which is essentially another way to say that the council is vetoing even the consideration of the item at the committee level.
Well, the
And so-
committee is only recommending to council. Council's making the motion based on the recommendation.
Fair enough, and the council would be ready, willing, and able to weigh in on it. What I'm suggesting is that what's the procedure to withdraw it once it's on the table, once the motions have been made? Because basically we're setting a precedent that the council doesn't even have to vote on anything that any committee recommends. So this isn't commentary on this particular item. I'm just thinking like, okay, so we have a motion coming up from the Cemetery Commission in 5 minutes talking about asking staff to raise rates. Well, council says, whoops, sorry, no, we're not even going to entertain that recommendation. We're not even going to vote on it. We're not going to deliberate about it. We're just not going to deal with it. And I just don't think I've ever seen us ever do that in my tenure here.
Okay. Councilor now, and then Councilor Wilson, and then the deputy mayor.
My question is, if we do send this back to council, that to committee, I'm not sure we should. What they present to us next time is basically gonna have this, it might not be worded the same, but it's basically gonna have the same intent. In my mind. So it's not really gonna change anything.
But if we haven't voted on the motion hasn't failed.
No, but I'm saying is, we seem to right now to be opposed to the intent because of what we've discussed in the past. So if the comes back with the same intent, chances are it's gonna get defeated again.
Okay. Councilor Wilson and the deputy mayor.
Yes, during the committee deliberations on this, there was no specific point made about council's historical position on this. And to be frank, I let it ride because the council, the committee was fairly adamant about this position. In particular few members actually. And I let it ride, assuming it would come to council and be defeated. Because that seemed to me the only sensible way forward. Because otherwise we'd still be sitting in that committee not talking about it.
Mhm.
Okay,
So just one other little paragraph. So I would prefer a seconder not to withdraw the motion.
Are you second?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor.
So what, I do understand the concerns. What I'm trying to say from my perspective is I don't know what the intent is. I simply don't. I'm not refusing to support this motion for any other reason other than the motion itself is not intelligible for me as a layperson.
Mhm.
If that's what I'm saying, if it was intelligible, I would know what the intent is and what is desired to be the full intent. If I knew that, I would be well informed to make a yes or no. So as it is right now, I can't support it just because it's not intelligible to me. That's it.
I would like to withdraw the motion.
Thank you. Seconder?
Unhappily, yeah. Okay.
Fair enough.
Hey, motion is withdrawn. Thank you.
Well,
Okay,
okay, reasonable people. I love it.
Council Remuneration Committee, there are two different documents there. On the 14th of May. Then we have the Heritage Advisory Committee. Anyone have any questions on that one? Cemetery Committee.
Man, there's one item that came out of the lively cemetery committee meeting. We had we
Really hard, too.
It was good. We've been having a lengthy conversation about rates and fees associated with interment and plot sales. The staff's done a benchmarking exercise enough to get to the point where the committee members would recommend to council that we direct staff to bring a revised draft cemetery bylaw to the next meeting of the cemetery committee with revisions focusing on updating the fee structures.
Had a motion?
Yes.
And he was first.
Oh, okay.
But in fact,
Deputy
the
Mayor?
deputy mayor had to stand up way first.
He doesn't want anything to do with it.
I will just comment on the liveliness of the cemetery.
If you really want, that still sounds like cheap.
It wasn't a dead issue at all.
So get in there and buy your plot now.
That's
before the
right.
new fees
Get
go
your
in.
name tagged to the ground. Great stuff.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor, moved and seconded on the question, all in favor. Motion is carried. Asset Management Committee draft minutes, Councillor Carver.
CEO, Deputy CEO. Trying to catch it.
Do you need motions for those other sets? For.
It's always sometimes and not other times, so
Okay,
it's either
wanted to
way.
make sure. Okay.
Okay,
Good.
okay, where were we going?
Okay,
Councillor
yeah, I have
Carver.
a question on the asset management committee minutes. And it's right at the very bottom, under the category, the section, committee membership. And it says, the committee does not expect changes in its membership prior to the new year. And I'd like to understand what that means.
Well, I think the people, although we don't have a full slate of members on the asset management committee. And when the new council is elected, there will be some necessary changes and hopefully some additional citizens. But the people who are currently on the committee and expect to still be alive in January, they're committing to stay with the committee.
Okay.
I just would like to clarify that their term ends in November.
So
And
they will-
they have to re-offer. They can't just stay
They
on.
will re-offer
It
for
should
their
say, it should
position.
say that the sitting members plan to re-offer.
Okay,
That's
reasonable.
because
They
otherwise,
can't just say, I'm going to do it.
yeah,
I appreciate it.
That can be suggested, but I'm not sure that council can amend the minutes of a committee meeting, but I can come up. I can
Yeah,
be-
We could ask them to
The
amend
minutes
it.
of.
thank you.
Yeah.
And then maybe the mayor would want to add if they are alive.
Pardon me?
Uh-huh.
We won't refer to the cemetery.
Yes.
That's right.
Believe me,
I've been working the cemetery committee
People on that
on the
committee are gonna be
inside.
here a long time.
from the inside of, okay, Soda monthly report. Any questions?
Any tears? Oh, it's so, well, it's very sobering, the numbers and the situations, so.
I'd love to know some of the background information to some of those cases. Stuff. Anyway, it's private information and that's understandable. Let's go to item number 9, new business. Ta-da.
I'd like to, at the next meeting, move a motion to direct staff to do the necessary financial and legal machinations to put the solar facility that we have finished under the ownership of our municipal electrical utility.
Thank you.
Second that motion.
This is for
It's just a notice of
notice of motion.
Well, next week I'll be happy to talk about it. That's how enthusiastic.
I got my second along that.
You're all set. On the rest.
Okay. So that's the end of that one. There's no other new business.
Mayor, if you'd indulge me, we had, council has received a verbal request on behalf of the Communities in Bloom organization for a donation of $400. I understand that we still have $3,000 of unallocated grant money in the budget for the calendar year, and I move that the council support that initiative in the amount of $400.
I'll second it.
Can
I don't
we
Can
do
we
that
make a
at the same
motion
meeting?
on the resolution that was made tonight?
No, notice motion.
Notice a
Should
motion.
give us a notice of motion, right?
Notice of motion, so we'll put that on the next week's agenda, next month's agenda.
Just as a heads up, a clarification requested from staff on this. The grants policy is for registered societies. And the Communities in Bloom is not a registered society, so a donation could not be made under the grant program. It would have to be made outside.
They didn't
the grant.
register with the joint stocks?
No,
Oh,
We'll deal with it appropriately when it comes up.
Could the garden club make an application? Could the garden club make an application? Are they a nonprofit? Or
yes, that some of the other groups could, yeah.
one of the other groups that are on that list in your letter?
Mhm.
So Mayor, maybe in the interest of time, I'll withdraw the motion and we can find some charitable organization to use the grants process and make the formal application.
Suzanne, do you have a contact in the Garden Society? That you could suggest that to them?
Well, Jenny Sanderson is the president.
Yeah.
I think, the chamber is a member.
Yeah, Jane.
Yeah.
Chamber is a member.
Could be arranged.
Somebody can do it.
We can make it so.
Okay, does anybody know what the opening date is for the nursing home? July 9th, they're moving people in. Has anyone heard of an opening date officially? Okay, then I would remind everyone that this Saturday is a celebration of the trails. Okay, and up at the Y Street entrance, there's gonna be food trucks and musical entertainment and all kinds of good stuff like that if you're around. And I would be remiss if I did not congratulate Counselor Now, AKA firefighter Now, AKA former Chief Richard Now, on achieving 50 years of service as a volunteer firefighter in the town of Mahone Bay. And I'd love to know how MODL gets those done, so we could do them ourselves.
It's not a hurry.
It's not her.
Well, I think we have to have a chat. Okay, anything else? Almost 20 to 9. We're on the Kangata method, council. Okay, hearing none, the agenda is completed. The meeting is adjourned.
Oh, yes, anybody online?
Oh,
yeah.
Back it up, rewind. How many online?
Well, I'm at
300, 400?
I wanna think something. Anyway, not so sure.
Sorry, it signed me out on my computer, so it's just like, no problem.
So
Well, if you're having trouble with your computer, the rest of us are.
Yes.
All day today, I've been.
there are 9 viewers currently.
9 viewers?
And
Any question?
there was a question, it said what deems one to be a developer, so probably going back to the questions that came in around the municipal finance act amendments.
So what the conversation,
Um,
what's
So
the
the question
question?
just says what deems one to be a developer, so there was reference to, I think, probably this is referring to the sale of land to developers for less than market value, and the question is just what makes someone a developer?
We could ask if the person's still watching to maybe clarify the question and send it to clerk at townmahombay.ca. That makes sense.
Okay, and we will,
If that wasn't the intention of the question.
where would we publish the response? I mean, let's say there's 9 people watching, maybe 8 of them would like to know the answer to the question.
Well, I mean, it could be responded to still on YouTube feed, I'm pretty sure.
Okay,
It won't be, you have to go back to see it.
Post on minutes.
Well, I don't know what the province defines as a developer, but as an individual, anybody is a developer.
Anybody's developing.
Yeah, as long as
Yeah.
you're developing property, so. Yeah. So nothing else.
okay, that's it, motion, you don't need a motion. We had a motion for the agenda is completed.
That's right.
So we're gone.